flow. Yo, I like to check this microphone before I start right quick. Microphone check 2 2 1 2 1 2.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Go With The Flow podcast. I'm your co-host, Brandon Bird.
What's up, baby? I'm your other co-host, Chris Nixon.
Yes, sir. And today is a very special day. We have a very special interview coming up after we do, our intro, our regular scheduled programming. So we're really excited about that. But, we got to start it off with our, our W's and L's, our question of the day. I kind of have a question of the day. I don't really know. We're still figuring it out. But also our slander segment too. So we're gonna make this quick so we can get right into the interview. But yeah, anything else you want to add, Chris?
Let's hop right into it. Should we go W's first again?
Yeah, let's do W's first.
All right. I'll take my W of the week is gonna go, and a little more about this later, of course. But my W of the week is going to go to the Pacers and the Cavs because the Pacers, I think, made out pretty well in the whole Harden ordeal. They gave up Oladipo, yeah, but they got back Karis LeVert, who is younger. He has had, I think, Oladipo's played well this year, but he's younger. He's had less problems with injuries, and I think he'll probably fit into what they've got going on with, Brogdon and Sabonis, a couple other younger guys. I think that he'll fit in there pretty well. So that's a nice W for them. And then a bigger W even for the Cavs, who got Jared Allen, who's an absolute stud as a center for next to nothing in that trade. Now, it doesn't make much sense because they already have Drummond and, they've got a weird situation going on over there. And I don't really know where they're going with it. But Jared Allen, if they can keep him for a long time, I think that's a good investment to make. Dude's a great rim protector. Rebounder, big man, beautiful afro. Nothing bad.
I aspire to have that type of afro. No cap.
Me too.
But yeah, no, definitely. That overall, that was a pretty decent trade for everyone, I'd have to say. I feel like everyone got a pretty decent deal, including the Rockets, which actually get my W of the week because they got rid of James Harden. And if they didn't get rid of James Harden this week, that would have been my L of the week because that man was ruining their franchise at the moment.
That is facts.
I think the Rockets have a chance to make the playoffs, and I'm kind of scared of them because the Warriors, we're battling for that 6 or 8 seed right now, and the Rockets look like they could take a spot. So I got to give them the W of the week because if they kept James Harden, that would have ruined their whole season. Chemistry would be all bad. It would be bad. But now they can start anew with Victor Oladipo now, and John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins and Christian Wood, all that. So they actually have a really good-looking team. So
I know Cousins has struggled a little bit, but that big three, John Wall, Depot, and Christian Wood, with Cousins coming off the bench,
that's fine.
I was watching them actually yesterday. Jayshawn Tate looked pretty good. They had a couple other younger, guards and wings that were making some plays. They look like they were. I'll be honest, bro. They look like they were having a little more fun out there. They look like someone was lifted off the shoulders. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, and that weight was James Harden. Okay. I'm sorry. I had to. If you know, you know. If you don't know, then you just look at that. Anyway, okay. L's of the week.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I'm a Rockets fan now. Let me just say that I'm rooting for those. But yeah, L of the week, man. Who got my L? Oh no. Hold on, you. Yeah. No. Oh, bro. Trump got impeached. I forgot. Bro got impeached again. Number two times. Bro.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. No. Donald Trump got impeached again, bro. Come on. I mean, what's a bigger L than bro? Not once, bro. He got impeached twice. He's had more impeachments than elections won. He's been impeached 2 more times than he's won the popular vote. That's crazy, bro. Couldn't be me. Could never be me. Truly, it isn't read.
I almost kind of forgot about that, but that was my L of the week. That was definitely gonna be my L of the week until I remembered. COVID. Hey. That man Juju.
I forgot.
Juju,
about that.
how is your couch looking right now? Because you're not going to be on the field anymore, my guy.
How's it
Now you look
feeling?
like a clown.
Is it comfortable, bro?
Is the
Like,
couch comfortable for you right now?
that okay?
'Cause
Oh my god! As bad as an L of Trump took,
I'm
that
sorry.
was the L of the week. Nah,
Trump was
you're
my
right.
L of the week for a long time, and then I remembered that man. Like, I don't even hate the Steelers. I don't even hate Juju, but that man dancing on people's logos and all that. That Juju, you look so stupid. You look so stupid, and you started taking L's too. Like, if you're winning, that's one thing, but you were losing every week, and then you talked even more trash to the Browns. That actually makes me mad, and y'all deserve that L for that, just for
No,
that.
and the way he said like the Browns is the Browns. That was his quote. The Browns is the
That's so
Browns, and
garbage.
then gets clapped, bro. 28-0 in the first quarter.
You look
Come
like
on, bro.
trash, my
And then
guy.
oh man, and then Chase Claypool, he went online. He was like the Browns are getting next week anyways. And I was at first I was like, you know what? I kind of I kind of like that he's still talking smack because hey, if you're gonna
Better back it
lose,
up.
don't go into but then hey man, you're probably right. First of all, Patrick Mahomes is that man, and Ben Roethlisberger through 500 yards. You best believe Mahomes is going crazy. So I like you know what? I was like, hey man, I'm here for entertainment. I was like more of that, like that's fun for me. But then yesterday, apparently, like he was like, the reason I said that is because the Browns didn't win with class. They like if
It's
they
like,
had won with more
bro,
class, I wouldn't have said like, bro, what do you mean? No, but that was you guys. You
the
were
whole
dancing with the Corvette,
season.
Corvette. You were the ones talking about the Browns is the Browns. They're a bunch of nobodies with a couple good play. What do you mean win with class, bro? You were talking the entire week, just talking smack about no, bro. You cannot say that. You cannot say that after the stuff you did. And people
Mm-mm,
started showing all the clips of him. Who he's only been in the league 1 year. There's a bunch of
mm.
clips of him taunting other players like that. I do not want to winning with class, bro. They're gonna celebrate a game, especially when you gifted them free bulletin board material. The definition of bulletin board material with that
Right.
Juju statement. Win with
Yeah.
class, man. Come on,
So
bro.
I don't hate the Steelers or anything, but the Steelers are just looking like clowns right now. Y'all were never about winning with class, so I can't respect that. I can't. So y'all get a fat L this week, even fatter than Trump getting impeached twice. Like, if
Facts.
you beat out Trump taking another L, that's how you know you took a huge L. So that's my L of the week for sure.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the move. Slander segment, man.
Mm,
I nominate the big fella, James Harden, bro. He
hmm
deserves to be slandered for the way he handled the whole situation. Like you can demand a trade, I get that. That's your prerogative as a player, especially as a superstar. We know what this league is about right now. It's a superstar driven league, and I think that's completely fair. Those are the guys that really make the league go. To be honest, Steph Curry gets paid like 40 whatever $million a year. That man is worth like hundreds of million in revenue every like I think it's fair that it's a superstar driven league. But the thing about a superstar and how you win as a superstar is that you get superstar treatment, right? But if you the ones that win are the ones that don't take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard last year, who was late to practice, he was living in San Diego, taking a helicopter to like the facility every day, making it seem late for like travel, for flights, all that stuff. It shows because you're not setting a good example for your teammates. You're not being a leader. You think LeBron James is late to practice, or you think LeBron James stays late after practice? Because I'll tell you which one. I'll tell you which one he does. If Steph Curry comes to practice late all the time, I don't think so. Think Draymond comes to practice late all the time. He has rings, man. And yeah, I know Kawhi also has rings, so let me not discredit Kawhi. But I'm just saying, man, one of the problems with the Clippers last year was their leadership. And the Rockets have never won because James Harden
Mm.
says he's going to the strip club before he comes out and still drops 50-point triple doubles. To be fair, which is incredible. If you can drop a 50-point triple double off a hangover, man, you're a different breed. I can't even hold you on that. You're a different breed. But everyone's not that
Thanks.
talented. Everyone's not like that gifted of a basketball player, and so they need to be disciplined. And so if you as a superstar are able to be disciplined and then instill that into your players and create a culture, because you hear that word all the time, it's a thing. It exists.
Mm.
Create a culture of winning basketball and winning practices. When I say practices, I mean like just like practicing things that
Right. That
lead
are
to winning,
good.
right?
Right. Yeah.
That's how you end up winning. So
Mhm.
slandering James Harden for all his behavior and especially for how he handled it, talking about because they lost a couple games that they just don't have enough. Man, I don't want to hear it. You don't have enough, to be fair, but
Mm.
I don't want to hear that. Steph Curry and the Warriors don't have enough. You hear him saying that? Absolutely
Right.
not. He's like, it's been 12 games. We're 6-6. You know, it is what it is. Harden was averaging 27 and 11, and the Rockets were doing all right. And then 4 games go badly, and now all of a sudden, oh yeah, we never had it. We just don't, we can't do it. And just I don't know. I think it was terrible how he handled himself. He
Mhm.
gives John Wall and all a chance, even though John Wall's playing well this season.
Yeah.
Christian Wood, same thing. Like those guys are putting good effort in. They're giving it their all, and they're playing some good basketball. And he didn't give him a chance, and he handled it really poorly. And I'm glad, honestly, for those guys, like you said, that they got him out of there because I think now they can focus on themselves and see what they can do.
Right. And I had the Rockets at the 9 seed because in our preseason predictions, go watch that if you haven't. Because I was expecting them to get James Harden out of there earlier. But honestly, if James Harden bought into that team, they would make the playoffs. Like James
Oh,
Harden was the
definitely.
only thing holding them back from the playoffs, and they can still make the playoffs without him. And yeah, James Harden, that's just like you can demand a trade, but don't do it like that. Don't do it as respectfully as you did, my guy. Like just make it known you want to leave. You don't have to like. I guess that's one way to get them to trade you fast, but that's just it's classless. It really is. And for my slander segment, I'm going at his teammate Kyrie Irving, who's really honestly putting the whole league in jeopardy right now by acting like an absolute fool. And in our interview that we did with our special guest, we'll talk a little bit more about this. But Kyrie Irving going out doing whatever, like, and let me be clear. Let me be clear. Throughout all of Kyrie's shenanigans with like flat Earth, the Sage or whatever, I've been defending that man. He can do whatever he wants, honestly, as long as it doesn't affect the team and the league. But now he's affecting the team and the league. So that man needs to stop going out. Even family gathering, I understand it, but come on,
Wear a
like
mask though. Do it
wear a
outside.
mask at
People
least,
make noise.
please. Like we gotta be smart about this, and especially you're one of the stars in a league that's really trying to get through this COVID thing and is really struggling right now, and you're really just making it so much worse of a situation that it has to be. So
Yeah.
Kyrie, you gotta take this slander real quick.
Yeah. And at first, when he was missing games, I thought it was just for the whole capital thing. And I was like, you know what? I respect that. If you want to, cause a little bit of media ruckus because you're going to miss games because of the capital thing and bringing more attention to it, that's cool with me. But I think going MIA is just not the right way to handle
Yeah,
yourself. Like you do have a responsibility to your teammates, and I just think that you can do more to take advantage of the spotlight than just disappearing and not saying anything. I don't know. I think there's a better way to handle it than that. And
oh yeah,
definitely, if you're leaving and all of a sudden now you're going to parties, that's not nah,
come on, dog.
that's not cool.
You gotta do better than that.
That's not cool.
But yeah, so um I guess okay, so just to so we did get a question of the week that I didn't send to Chris because I'll explain this in a second. But so we did get a question of the week that I'm gonna put right here. The question was favorite Kanye song. Let me pull up the person that put it up. And honestly, I'm just gonna let y'all know there was not a lot of planning that when did this the first part of this episode. It was mostly the second part of the episode. But yeah, so shout out to Marcus Flows or Marcus Flow for putting that question, favorite Kanye song. And I'm gonna give you an answer, but actually I'm gonna give you an answer in a different episode because I was actually thinking about this. There's there's like a Kanye West bracket thing that people do. Like it has all of his most popular songs in a bracket. And I was thinking that one episode at some point we could actually like do that bracket thing. And then so I don't want to give you my answer just in case we do that. But I'm just showing y'all that this is how the question of the week thing is gonna go. Like we're gonna put up a little poll thing on our Instagrams, and then you can just send in with like a question about literally anything, and we'll answer it. This one I'm gonna
Yeah,
save because it's a really good question, and could be made for a really interesting episode. So I'm gonna save this. Shout out to Marcus Flow.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. Like we said, anything y'all want us to talk about. Like we talk about mostly about basketball and music and stuff like that, and pop culture or whatever. But hey, man, we're open to whatever. So if y'all got
right.
any questions, just anything that you want to ask, definitely let us know. But we are not experts on basketball. So today we brought in someone who is. You know what I'm saying? So, hope you guys enjoy this. But we got a whole interview with with Kendra Andrews. She's a Head-Royce alum, and she is, she added some extra time for us. She's coming back to the Bay Area, and so everything will be explained in the interview. But yeah, we have a whole interview with her, and it was honestly, it was a lot of fun. We just recorded it right before this, and so hopefully you guys enjoy that. Should be a great episode.
Today we have Kendra Andrews on the Go with the Flow podcast. This is a crazy thing that we kind of just set up very quickly, and we just have to say thanks again for coming on with such short notice. We really appreciate it. And yeah, anything you wanna add?
No, I mean, I'm happy to. I'm sitting in a furnitureless apartment right now, so I don't really have much going on. So this is a great way to fill my morning. So happy to be here with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, and we know that this is definitely a crazy time for you right now. And for everyone who doesn't know, like, who you are, what you do, and even the transition that you're going through right now, could you give us a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, so first, I'm a Head-Royce alum, class of 2015. I'm currently in Denver, as I said. I just finished my job as the Denver Nuggets beat writer for The Athletic, and I'm making my transition over to cover the Golden State Warriors, our hometown team, for NBC Sports Bay Area. So an exciting transition for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can we ask, like, what got you into sports journalism in the first place? Like, was there a specific moment, or was it like a kind of a long process? I don't know.
Well, so we always loved watching sports growing up. I never played basketball, really not good at playing basketball. But we always loved watching the Warriors, and really, I mean, we were a split 49ers and Raiders family. My grandfather was a Giants fan, so Bay Area sports were just very much part of our family. And I must have been either a junior or senior at Head-Royce, and I was watching like Sports Center with my dad. Because as you guys know, that's the time that everyone starts asking you, like, well, what do you want to go to school for? What do you want to do with your life? And you're like, I'm 16, I don't know. And I was watching Sports Center with my dad, and I was like, Dad, people get paid to talk about sports. And he's like, yes, they do. And I'm like, well, I think that sounds like a ton of fun. I'm going to do that. And he was like, okay, sounds good. So I think it was kind of a spur of the moment. This seems like a really cool career. And then as I started kind of getting a little bit more ingrained in it, that's when it was like, okay, yeah, this is actually something that is fun, but also is rewarding and is hard work and something I actually want to pursue.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think I'm kind of the same way, because I mean, obviously, my family, we've watched a lot of sports, mostly from my dad. So I've been watching sports since I was, I don't know how old, and then I'm also hoping to go into the whole sports journalism, sports media industry.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same way for me. Like, you can get paid to just talk about sports. That's what I like to do with my friends and all that stuff at lunch. So
yeah. I mean, I think it's really cool. The cool thing about it, like, you want your job to be fun, right? Like, you see or you hear of people who just hate going to work, or work is such a task, and they're like dreading it. And it's like, both of my parents kind of made careers out of their passions as well. So maybe that's what let me know that you can do that. But like, when you get to say, well, what do you do for a living? Well, I watch basketball for a living. Like, you never kind of hate going into work. So I definitely think it's a fun career path to go on.
Right. And that's pretty much what the next question is about, because I feel like, as someone who does their what they're passionate about for a living, and especially something around sports journalism, I don't know, at least for me, I have someone who's also wants to go into journalism. I've encountered people saying like, oh, that doesn't sound like a real job, or like, that doesn't sound like a business job or a marketing job. So did you ever encounter people telling you like, that's not a real job, like, it's something you want to do, but it's probably not a real thing that you could make money off of, you know?
Well, it's such an interesting thing because I think it's not necessarily exclusive to sports journalism, but the journalism industry right now is just in a really shaky place. And unfortunately, over the past 4 years in particular, just like the respect for journalists has gone way downhill, or the trust people have in them have gone way downhill. So in sports, it's kind of it's not part of like the fake news thing because you're reporting on sports. You're not reporting on like the government or politics or anything like that. But there's still just like well, it's not really a money making industry. But I think that that's very false, and you definitely can make money, but you shouldn't enter this career being like, I want to be a millionaire and retire when I'm 40, because that probably won't happen. Like very, very few, I think, will make enough money to do that. But I think that it totally is a career. I don't think people realize how much hard work it is. And like, not everyone can write, or not everyone can carry themselves on camera and talk. And quite frankly, like not many people know what they're actually talking about. And not many people have the skills to figure out what they're talking about, because it takes, you have to be able to talk to people and ask people and pry and be a good writer. So it definitely is a job. It's definitely a ton of work. And it's actually funny you mentioned like the marketing thing, because in college, I had a ton of friends who were business majors, and they were like, oh, what do you have going on this week? I have 5 tests and X this, X that. What do you have in like your journalism classes? I was like, well, the journalism classes aren't hard at all. I'll say that like point blank. But I have like 3 jobs, and I run the school paper, and I'm doing this and doing that. So like, it might not be your stereotypical work, but it's a ton of work.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually really good to hear, because as someone who's, we're going through the college process right now as seniors, and I kind of feel some sort of pressure to say like, oh yeah, I want to do business or economics. Like I feel like I there's a pressure to say that on my application or to people who ask me, because if I say journalism, I won't be taken seriously. But it's a real thing, as you say. Like people really make money off of this. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it as a major. So I'm really actually happy that you said that, and it's good to hear. So yeah.
I think especially I think especially at a Head-Royce, where it's a lot of engineers and doctors coming out of here. Mm-hmm. It's almost like part of you wants to like, should I be doing this? But I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And transitioning into Head-Royce actually. So we kind of wanted to go back to the start, where you mentioned that you kind of got really interested in journalism. But just in general, your Head-Royce experience, do you have any like super fond memories of being there on campus, certain teachers? Like, is there any super fond memories that you have of being at Head-Royce?
Well, I will shout out your teacher advisor, Mark Schneider, because we actually went to, I don't remember what year this was. It must have been 2015, actually, like when the Warriors were in the finals for the first year, because Oracle was having like watch parties at the arena, and Mark and I went to one of the watch parties together to kind of out my time at Head-Royce. So he was and it's funny because he was never my teacher. I never had him as a teacher at Head-Royce. But then I think probably my favorite teacher from Head-Royce was Nancy Feidelman.
Yeah.
Nancy was awesome. I had her my freshman year, and I remember I was like really struggling in her history class, and she called me in one day and she said something along the lines of like, you learn differently, and like that and that's okay. And this is how we're going to make sure that you are supported in this class and throughout, because as you guys are well aware, like Head-Royce is a very competitive school, and it's very fast paced, and it's, sometimes maybe you don't feel like you mentioned before about, okay, economic major, engineering major. It's like, okay, well, my brain's not clicking the way that all these economic and engineering people's brains are clicking. So I think I really loved that she kind of went out of her way to be like, we're going to make sure that just because your brain isn't working like those people's, we're still going to make sure that you're successful here.
Yeah, I had her for freshman English class, and that's still to this day my favorite class I've ever been in. So yeah. I love this
Yeah,
battle.
shout out to Mr. Schneider.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider for setting all this up. Yeah. But staying on the Head-Royce thing, is there like something specific that you learned at Head-Royce, or some specific advice that you got while you were here that's really helped you like in your career in sports journalism?
It's a good question. I think for my time at Head-Royce, I guess it kind of goes back to like what Ms. Feidelman said about like just making sure that you're up and stuff. Head-Royce definitely prepares you to go above and beyond with everything, right? Like and it's kind of funny because you'll realize when you get to college, because and I think in any high school, but particularly Head-Royce, like you make sure you have to do everything, right? You are like overly prepared for everything. You're on top of everything. And I think, I'll be completely blunt, college, you can get away with not doing quite as much. You can like cut a couple corners here and there. But when you get into like the professional world where you can no longer cut corners and you actually have to make sure you do everything, I do think that overly preparedness that Head-Royce kind of ingrains in you does help. And for me, because there were times when I was struggling, working to get out of that has taught me to work harder now, to work harder than my peers or my colleagues and everything, just to make sure like I am really on top of everything. I don't know if that's necessarily like something they taught me at Head-Royce, but it's definitely something I took away from going to school there.
For sure. And so talking about senior year as a Head-Royce student, I'm go with the flow podcast. We do our research on our guests when we have, when we have guests on the show. So after doing some research, we actually found a really interesting thing that you did for your senior project, interviewing Dave Roberts, which is really cool. And we're going into our second semester of senior year, so we're going to do our senior projects. And I just want to know, how did you get that opportunity? Because I need to go through whatever canals you went through to get that kind of opportunity. So
I was very fortunate. My sister also is in sports journalism, and she was I was a senior, so she was a sophomore at University of Portland when I was a senior in high school, and she was early in her journalism career as well, trying to just get her footing. And she met a journalist in Portland who works for the Associated Press. And I told my sister, I was like, my senior project's coming up. I want to try and do something in sports journalism. And she said, well, let me talk to Anne, the woman in Portland, to see if she knows anyone in the Bay Area who could help you out, because the Associated Press is based all over the place. Basically, long story short, she put me in contact with this woman, Janie McCauley, who's a sports journalist in Oakland for the Associated Press, who covers, at that time, she covered primarily 49ers and Giants, but now she's transitioned more into covering the Warriors. But I reached out to her and said, I have a senior project. This is what it is. Can I shadow you around different games and practices and whatnot? And she was super kind and said yes. And she took me to a Giants game and they were playing the Padres, who Dave Roberts was the manager at the time. And I guess she and Dave have known each other for quite some time. And after the initial media scrum, she walked up to him and said, this is Kendra. Can she interview you? And she told me that she was going to do that like a couple days before so I could prepare. And he was very kind and said yes. And my heart was pounding because that was the first like real interview I ever did. And it happened to be like the coach of a professional sports team. So that's how that happened. So I was very, very lucky to have people to help me out and connect me with other people and kind of just go through a grapevine of sorts.
That's awesome. That looks like a great opportunity. So
yes, even though he's kind of the enemy as a Giants fan. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So we're gonna move on to some college stuff. All right. So
Yes.
Gonzaga, they've been great for a while now. You know, they've been a number one ranked team in the entire country. They've been a 1 seed a few times in the tournament, but they've never pulled it all off. They've never won the whole thing, right? So this year, they're finally the preseason number one overall team. Is this the year that they get it done? And is this the best team that they've ever had?
They have a pretty good chance. I think the only way they don't is if, I don't want to say a fluke loss happens, but if they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, like if they come out in the NCAA tournament and play terribly or just make some stupid mistakes and get eliminated. But I think that they have a really good chance to, and it's so funny, like watching them from afar now, because I feel being so ingrained with the team, I just knew so much about them, and now I just don't as much, which is sad. But I mean, I definitely think this is one of the best teams in history. I think the only other comparable team, I think this team and then the team that made it to the Final Four in 2016, I think those were definitely the best. And I think like when you look at the players that were on each of those teams, those were the ones that had the most NBA potential. I mean, the 2016 team did have the most success coming out of it, like with Rui and Zach Collins and Killing Tilly's on a 2A now and stuff like that. And then you look at this team with like Jalen Suggs, Corey Kispert, Drew Timme, like all those guys. So I definitely think that this is a good year for them. And also just like, maybe this sounds bad, but like take advantage of when other teams have to get canceled or schedules get rearranged or you miss out. Like, that sounds really awful to say, but like kind of take advantage of that. But I mean, now that they're through the non-conference play and they're still undefeated, I think they're going to breeze through conference play. And so then as long as they don't mess anything up in the tournament, I think they should be able to.
I mean, everyone, all eyes on them this year. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Going back into the college thing. So as seniors in high school, going through the college process right now, is there anything that you had wished that you were told as you were going through the college process and going into college about sports journalism or just college in general? Anything that you wish you were told before you going into it?
Well, I think for the sports journalism part, and I kind of alluded to this before, but it's not your typical major in the sense that as long as you are a good student and good at like basic journalism, you will do well in your journalism classes. I think the thing that I didn't know is just how much other stuff you have to do, because this is one of those careers that they really don't care about your GPA. Like, you have to pass and they want you to be smart and do well. However, like, there are a number of people in this business who never graduated college, but they were good at what they do, so they still got a job. So it's so much more about your experience than your GPA and your grades. And what that means is like you will have to sacrifice some of your college experience, like the stereotypical college experience, in order to get that. So, you know, if you work at your school paper and then try and contribute somewhere else, and basketball games happen on a Saturday night or football games happen on a Friday night, you might not get to go out with your friends on the weekend and have that typical college time because you're covering the game and stuff like that. And I didn't fully know that going in. And it's something that was like, I mean, it's definitely hard to sacrifice because you want to have that college experience. So it's about finding a balance of those types of things. And then also just, the extra work to put in. So like my advice would be, wherever you guys end up going to college, like if they have a student media, anything, school paper, if you want to do writing, TV channel, if you want to do more broadcasting, like get involved with that, because it's the easiest way to get experience. It's the easiest way to get exposure. And then, like in my instance, because Gonzaga is such a small school and it's in such a small town, if you cover the team for your college paper, then you start to get noticed, because Gonzaga was so small. So it's like, okay, this Kendra girl is covering all the Gonzaga basketball games. So when The Athletic wanted someone to cover Gonzaga and test it out, they reached out to me because they already knew that I was doing that and knew the team and stuff. So I would just say, like, the school paper is the easiest way to kind of start building your resume and building experience.
Yeah, that's super interesting. The whole thing about sacrificing a lot of your college experience. But yeah, I've also I've been going to all these meetings and asking like, what should I do? How do you get into the whole sports journalism field? And that's a lot of what I've heard, is that you have to do, like, even more important than the major itself, to get an experience. So,
totally.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But and then I'm also curious, what is like the biggest surprise you've run into in the field of journalism so far, that you didn't something you didn't expect?
That's a good question. The biggest surprise. Sorry, I really have to think. I don't know. The biggest surprise. I don't know if anything has necessarily surprised me. Sorry. Like, I guess nothing. I guess there hasn't really been anything like super like shocking or anything like that. I mean, I think the lifestyle is not shocking, but it's like you just have to like really experience it, and it's something that you can't necessarily fully prepare for until you do it. And that's not to like, it's not a bad lifestyle at all, and I'm not trying to be like, watch out, because not at all. But it's it's very like lots of flights and early. And I always heard it before about like, oh, the road trip diet. And I was like, what are you talking about, the road trip diet? They're like, oh, you just eat like crap like whenever you're on a like road trip. And I'm like, I don't buy that. I don't believe it. And then when I covered my first NCAA tournament, I was like, okay, I understand why maybe gains weight during this time of year, because you don't have any time to eat. And then by the time you're done, it's only fast food restaurants open and stuff like that. But I don't know if that's necessarily like shocking or surprising. But you can keep asking questions and I'll keep.
That's actually a good point, though. I mean, because going back to the last question where you said that like you might not be able to hang out with your friends on Saturday nights or whatever, like I had not really thought about that when I'm thinking about going into journalism. Like there's a lot of stuff that you have to sacrifice when you do journalism, and you have to, take flights, travel with teams and stuff like that. That's actually something I have to think about. That is a good point. Okay.
It doesn't really stop after college, quite frankly, because look at the NBA schedule, right? And when are their games? Okay, they're all at 7:30 p.m., for example.
Yeah.
On Monday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. And if your friends work a 9 to 5, your schedule's just really, it's like really weird to match up your schedules and try and figure that out, because it's just not your typical hours. And I also think, kind of based off that, something I just thought about was like, especially in now, because most people are working from home, but depending on what company you work for, a lot of your work you do like remotely. You don't have to go into the office or the newsroom every day. So you have to have you have to be pretty self-disciplined, because there isn't going to always be someone looking over your shoulder, making sure you're doing things. And so you have to make sure that you're the one being proactive. You're the one reaching out to sources. You're the one coming up with ideas all the time. And for some people that is hard, because they need to have someone else enforcing these kinds of things, but it's really on you. And so like you'll be just on a Wednesday sitting at home, like, and you have to make sure that you are continuing with your work, because no one's going to be like yelling at you to do it unless you miss a deadline. Then they'll yell at you, but most of the time they don't.
And talking about the whole lifestyle thing, I know as a beat writer for an NBA team, that's a whole lot of, is that like, yeah, that's a whole lot of late nights, but can you like give a little insight about what that's like?
Yeah. So we always say like journalism is a hurry up and wait business, which means, okay, hurry up. You need to get reach out to sources. You need to get the idea in. So it's like you're hurrying to reach out to everyone, but then you have to wait for them to get back to you. So it's a lot like, okay, in the morning you're sending about a bunch of emails and texts and calling, and then you're just in the afternoon, you're just sitting and waiting, because at a certain point you can't do anything else with your story or whatever you're working on until the source or whoever you want to talk to finally gets back to you, which can be very frustrating at times. And there is definitely no other sport I would rather cover than basketball. First off, too many games in baseball. Could not do that. Absolutely not. Second of all, rain delays, big no. After you sit through a 4-hour rain delay, you're just like, I don't want to do this. But I think also just like in terms of what the league stands for and how it empowers its players to speak out on what they believe and feel, and coaches and everyone, I don't know. I definitely would not want to cover a league that does not allow their players or coaches or personnel to do any of that stuff, or they talk down to them after the fact. But for the NBA beat itself, it's a tough one. I think because basketball is now one of probably the most popular sport, or definitely one of the most popular sports, it's definitely gotten very competitive, like the pro beat. Of course, some markets are more competitive than others, like the Bay Area, New York. Denver's not very competitive. But it makes you, you always want to try and come up with new ideas, which can be hard because you're covering the same group of 16 guys. COVID has only made that harder with Zoom calls, because very rarely do you get anything exclusive. If you have a good relationship with the PR staff, they'll usually help you out, or with the player individual, but you're just not in person. You can't have that discussion. But pre-COVID, a day would usually be shoot around in the morning, and then afternoon prepare for the game, and then go to the game. The Athletic was very different than other publications because it was really into deep dive, deep analysis. So whereas if you worked at a paper, you'd maybe write something off of shoot around that morning, and then also write something off of the game, and then write something else off of the game to run the next morning. Whereas the Athletic was no, just take the entire day to talk to people, watch the game, feel it out, then pick something a little bit more broad, and just really explain how that, what that means for the team or whatever. But it's a fun beat, but it's a challenging one for sure.
I'm just taking in all of this information. This is really helpful, actually.
Yeah, that was super interesting about the Athletic. I mean, my dad has an account, so I've seen some of the Athletic stuff, and I think that they tend to just all the content tends to be just a little bit more interesting than some of the basic stuff. Because I mean, I'm following the NBA games already, so I kind of know the scores or know who played well and stuff. So I think it's really interesting how a lot of them or other articles are just a little bit different than normal.
I mean, it definitely wants to give you because I was told, I forget who told me this, but they're if you wanted to know what happened in the game, you would either watch it or watch the highlights. No one likes to read about the play-by-play. They'd rather play-by-play because you can actually see what happens. So a couple weeks ago, Nikola Jokic had a career high 18 assists, which is a crazy number of assists. But instead of just being here are all of the nifty assists he did. It's like diving into, okay, well, did anyone teach you how to pass? When did you get your court vision for like your teammates? How do you play alongside a guy? Like there's just so much more than just saying like he got 18 assists, or I did a story after Jokic had like another triple double. It's like, okay, yes, he got another triple double, but there's so many more interesting, like, and that obviously is super amazing, but there's so many other numbers that show how amazing he is. He's like, there was a crazy stat that's like, he either assists or shoots on 43% of all of the Nuggets made baskets. So like whether he's on the bench or on the floor, like he's involved with 43% of every bucket the Nuggets score. So that plus averaging a triple double plus 7 steals, plus it's like, okay, well, he's obviously leading an MVP race right now. So it's like, okay, you go into that and talk broadly about like what he's been doing instead of just saying he's got another triple double. So I guess that's a really long way of saying like my advice for like writing off of game stories is to either hone in on one thing that's been really good, one player, and just diving into more of his overall impact and what he's been doing instead of just that one game, or just look for maybe like the not super obvious storyline. I was told once about this baseball player hit his like 500th, maybe that's a big number, I don't know, like 100th home run, something like that, like some landmark home run. And everyone went and talked to the guy who hit the 100th home run. But instead, this journalist went and found the person who caught the 100th ball and talked to that fan, who ended up being like some lifelong fan and whatever and stuff like that. But like there's always a less obvious story. Then those become like the super interesting ones.
Yeah. I just real quick, I do want to mention that you mentioned that whole NBA and their inclination to focus on social justice. And I also I want to acknowledge that that's something we've been talking about a lot. And I think that's also partly why the NBA is kind of ahead of all the other leagues. I mean, there's plenty of other reasons too, but yeah.
100%.
Best league. I'm just saying, you know, unbiased, best league. I'm just saying.
No question.
I am too.
I love baseball. No question. But since you were talking about Jokic and his 18 assist game, and I know you've already like talked about this a little bit on your podcast, but right now, what do you think about Jokic's MVP chances and his chances to average a triple double and maybe even lead the league in assists?
I think all are possible. I really do. I think that Jokic, like, he has to continue to do what he's doing. And actually last night, Michael Malone said, Michael Malone was like, I hate to say this, but he needs to be even better because the Nuggets are losing right now. So they need to be better. I was like, okay, I don't know if that's on him, but you're the coach, so whatever. I mean, I definitely think that Jokic has a good chance of averaging a triple-double. I know that that's not his like prerogative. That's not his number one goal, but if he has to do it, he will. And right now it seems like they win when he scores a triple-double or close to it. And I also think that he has a good chance of leading the league in assists. And I don't think that's something you typically see from a guy of his size and stature. But I definitely think he'll be up. If he's not like the number one assist leader, I think that he has a good chance of being, you know, the top 3 for sure. As for the MVP, it's like a really interesting thing because I think if the season were to end right now, he would be the winner, I think. But we're obviously only like not even 2 months into the season, not even a month into the season. So that's not going to happen. I think part of it definitely has to do with where the Nuggets end in the season. If they continue on the path that they continue on, which is like struggling and playing really inconsistent basketball, then I don't think he will win. And it'll go to someone like Luka probably, or LeBron, depending, because you always have to put him in. Oh, shoot, sorry, just getting a phone call. Text this person back. Sorry.
If you have something you have to take, it's all good. Yeah, it's not a problem.
So, but I think MVP, yeah, he has a good chance of it, because the way I look at MVP is like, who does your team like legitimately need to be better, and who, when he's off the court, is your team worse? And the Nuggets are worse when Nikola Jokic isn't out there. And he, like I said, with that 43% stat, like he obviously is a huge part of the Nuggets being successful. And so I think that puts his odds pretty high, especially if he continues to average. If he averages a triple double on the season, I 100% think that he would win MVP. But the other thing about the Nuggets, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox like they do about this whole respect thing, because I think it's a little, they overdo it just a ton. However, I do see their point that like the Nuggets aren't as respected in the league. Like, and that part of it has to do with the market. It's not a huge market. Nuggets fans aren't very passionate. Like, it's a football city. Everyone cares about the Broncos, no matter how bad they are. Like, they prefer the Broncos. It's, you know, and so the Nuggets have an uphill battle just getting that respect. But I think if it's like undeniable that Jokic was just the best player on a really good team this year, then he has a really good shot. But no matter what, I still see him finishing in, I'd say like top 3 to 5 in the MVP race, depending, because I don't think they're going to give it to Giannis again, because he won it 2 times in a row. So I think they want to give it to like Luka. So we'll see and it also depends on how Luka does. So we'll see what happens with all of that.
And this is a conversation that we have had on the podcast before, but I definitely think that it really depends on where they finish. But right now, if the Nuggets finish top 3, I see it would be pretty hard not to give it to Jokic. So.
Right. And both we had this conversation a couple episodes ago. And I think we both had in our preseason predictions, we both had the Nuggets finishing in number 2 in the West. And just, you kind of mentioned it, like they're not going to give it to Giannis again. LeBron, I don't know. He also has Anthony Davis on his team. So like you could give it to either of them. Like that's the tough thing. There's a lot of duos in the league. And so this is kind of embarrassing now, but in our prediction video, we were going through all of the possible winners, and we both, or I at least, we were talking about the fact that either that the Nuggets have a really good team and they could be really high in the rankings, and they don't have a lot of people blocking their way in terms of who can win MVP on their team. So, and going off of the bubble performance, I said that there's a possibility that Jamal Murray could win MVP. And now that looks like a really, I don't know about that, but I was just going off his bubble performance and he was looking really good. And I don't know, but Jokic is having a crazy season. So got to give it to him.
Jamal definitely got bubble MVP. I think that there's a good chance that Jamal could win most improved player. I think him and MPJ have potential, depending obviously on how everything else folds out. I think Jamal would need to do a little bit more right now to get into the most improved player category. But like you said, like based on his bubble performance, if he can find some of that explosiveness and just like consistency and stuff, I think he could be in the most improved category, because he's been pretty just so far, right? Like
yeah. I thought that he was going to continue the performance he was giving in the bubble. I don't know, but that was just me. I don't know, but we'll see. There's still time. So it's fine. But yeah, so speaking of the people who the Nuggets played last night, the Warriors, now that you're covering the Warriors, we were kind of wondering what your thoughts on the season that they've had so far are, and how far you think they can actually go, because there's a lot of people saying, like Chris and I think we both had them at number 6, but I don't know. A lot of people are doubting them, but it'll be interesting to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely early in the season, I think. So it's really hard because, like you said, like with going back to the Nuggets really quick, you guys predicted them to be a top 2 seed, and I think they're like just at 500 with that win over Golden State last night. I don't think that that's going to persist. I think that's going to change. And just like the standings right now are just all over the place. But I think the Warriors, I think it was unfair, or maybe not unfair, unrealistic to be like, they're going back to the finals this year, or maybe like, or they're going back to the Western Conference Finals this year. Like that's automatically going to happen because they have Steph and Curry back. And like, yes, a lot of those conversations were happening over the summer before Klay got hurt again. But I think it's like, it's important to remember, one, the only guy, I think this is correct, I might be wrong, but I think I read this somewhere, like the only guy who has played like real consistent minutes with Steph Curry before the season was Draymond Green. Everyone else hadn't really gotten much experience playing with them. So you're reintegrating like your key to everything, who half the guys haven't even played with. You have a ton of new people, you know, you're refiguring things out. And like Steve Kerr, I think, said in one of his press conferences a while back, like he's like, give me 2 months, like give me 2 months to just like, you know, work out the iron. They also hadn't played in 10 months before the season started. So to me, like they look like a team who hasn't played in 10 months, who are figuring things out for themselves. I think that they will like make the playoffs. I really do. And like we've seen in some of the games when everything is clicking for them, how good they can be, right? Like, yes, Stephen Curry went off for 62 points, and that's always great to have. And in some of their other ones, like against the Clippers when they came back, like when things work for them, they can be a really good team and beat some of the best teams in the league. And then we also have seen them struggle. So I don't think that people should be like out on them. I don't think, like, they already made more wins than they got last season. So that's a plus for them. So I think give them a little bit more time, and I think they should be fine and be okay.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, go ahead. No,
I
you're
would say
good.
as a fan, it's tough to not overreact to, you know, those first two losses. I was sweating a little bit, but I think it's pretty clear that, you know, especially when Draymond came back, that they have the potential to be really good, and it'll take time. They're not going to win the championship this year, but give them a little time, and I think they'll be fine.
I also think it's hard, especially for fans, because for 4 years, the Warriors were just like on such a high. And then, unlike a lot of teams where it's like kind of a slow drop, it just like plummeted and just like hit the floor from going to the NBA Finals to winning like 5 games last year. And so now it's like hard to kind of temper expectations or predictions, because for a lot of more recent Warrior fans, the only thing that they have seen is really, really good or really, really bad. But there is an in-between, and that's kind of where they're at right now.
Right. And I mean, I've been saying basically the same thing that you said. Like, we just need some time. It's really early. They haven't played in a long time. It's a whole new team. The only people that have played together are Steph and Draymond.
Yeah.
So I think if you give Andrew Wiggins, Kelly Oubre, who struggled a lot early, some more time, James Wiseman to mature, I think that and we've seen it. They've looked really good in some games. They looked great against the Kings. They looked great against the Clippers when they came back. So they've had really good games. And Kelly Oubre, like, he's been struggling from 3, but even in some of the games that we played really well in, he went like 3 for 4 from 3, and he plays amazing defense, and he really hustles. So I think we have a lot of potential. We just have to see where it goes. And I think another thing you said early on is that, like, it's hard to really put a lot of stock into these records that these teams have early, because it's a weird season. You know, games are getting postponed. Teams are playing back to back. Really, like, if you play the Lakers twice, that might be 2 L's, right? So with this very weird season, there's a lot of talk about possibly even just delaying the season for a little bit longer until COVID gets figured out. Do you think that the NBA should kind of try to push through all of this and try to make it work, or do you think that the season should be delayed until they really figure out what's going on with COVID?
I mean, it's a hard thing to deal with. I think I was very vocal. There was a Nuggets like last week, the Nuggets played the 76ers, and it was after Seth Curry tested positive, and they were doing contact tracing and all this stuff. And did they have enough players? Did they not? Joel Embiid didn't want to play ball. And I was like, we'll just postpone the game. Like, postpone the game. There's a reason they only set out half the schedule. We don't know, like, no one knows what's going on. Like, postpone the game. And they obviously didn't, but now are like postponing lots of games. I think the Suns have had like 3 of their games postponed. Orlando, ton of them. And it's really tricky because I believe that COVID is going to be around for quite some time. So I don't think it should be like, well, the NBA should just stop until the rest of the year, because quite frankly, I think it's going to take that long for things to kind of get figured out. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think playing through this uptick is like very safe or stuff, because from my understanding, like what the health and safety protocols were based off of information from the CDC. However, like the CDC says, well, if you aren't next to someone for more than 15 minutes within close proximity, or if you like just walk by someone on the street, you won't get COVID. Yes, I buy that. When I'm walking down the street, if I walk by someone, I'm not going to catch COVID. However, and that's kind of how they applied it to basketball. However, there's so many other interactions in basketball that's not just, well, no one's standing next to each other for more than 15 seconds or 15 minutes. It's like, yeah, but you guys are touching the same ball. You guys are touching each other because it's a very physical game. There's sweat everywhere, heavy breathing. Like, there's just a lot of things that the CDC guidelines for an everyday person just don't apply when you're playing sports. It's inside, it's not like football or like baseball is a socially distanced game. It's not like football where it's outside. There's so much gear and padding and face shields and all this stuff. It's just very different. So I don't think that necessarily all lines up. However, at the same time, like in football, if you postpone a game or you shut down your facility for a week, you miss 1 game. In the NBA, if you shut down your facility for a week, you miss 4 games.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to make up. So I understand not wanting to just like throw your hands up and postpone everything, because then you will end up with just a mess at the end. But it's really hard to just say play through it at the same time, because it is a microcosm of like what we're seeing in the world right now. So it's really interesting, and it's really interesting seeing some of the players or personnel's reaction to some of the like new protocol that they put in place. Was it I forget who it was, but one player was like, they can't tell me what to do, like I'm a grown man. And it's like, no, you can stay in your house like the rest of us, except when you go to work, or you can wear your mask. Like it is the everyday life for most people
of us
right now.
Yeah.
So you can swallow your ego a little bit and just like go along with it.
I was watching, I think it was The Jump yesterday, and they were saying that, they're no longer allowed to like have people in their room and stuff like that. And I was like, basically they just used the rule that California has been using for the last like 6 weeks. And so it's like, it's really not that bad. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
But speaking of, no, oh, sorry, you just let me say on that. Or,
Me? Oh, no. I was going to say one more rule I just don't understand quite is like the rule of like you have to wear a mask until you check into the game, and then you don't have to wear a mask anymore. And to me, it's like you might as not wear a mask on the bench because you took it off. But anyway, that's my opinion on that.
yeah, I wanted to ask about what your thoughts are on the whole Kyrie Irving situation, because I mean, also there's that whole video that leaked of him, like I think at a family party or something, where he appeared to be definitely breaking some COVID rules. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that guys need to act responsibly, and like they're not like I and this isn't exclusive to basketball players. I think people with a lot of money and people with a lot of notoriety think that they're above certain rules. Or there's like, well, we all got tested before we all got together. And it's like, okay, well, that's just not how a sickness works in general. You can catch it at any time. So I think that people just need to act a bit more responsible. Kyrie, like, I think he needs to think of, you know, his team and other responsibilities that he has. And if you really love playing basketball, you should do what you can to play basketball. And right now that means not having those types of events and, you know, staying home a little bit more. So I think it's a hard situation. It's really interesting. Before this, I was watching this video. Mike Wilbon, who works for ESPN, like, I don't know what show he was on this morning, but he posted to his Instagram, and he was talking about how he's been hearing comparisons of like Katie, Kyrie, and James Harden now to LeBron, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade as the big three. And Wilbon made a really interesting point. He goes, I'm not going to compare those. I don't think that you can say those big three in the same breath, because LeBron, Bosh, and D Wade were like responsible, mature men. And Katie is that. But what we're seeing from James Harden and Kyrie Irving is that they will let you down. They won't stand with you or for you. Like, you hear those comments from Cousins and John Wall and stuff. You see what Kyrie Irving has been doing, and it's just kind of like, it's very frustrating. And I'm not even a Nets fan. So like, I'm not, you know, mad from a fan standpoint. It's just kind of like, come on, you guys, let's get it together a little bit.
Right. Chris, yeah, all right. I'll just say this. So yeah, kind of taking this from COVID all the way to the Nets. I was watching the TNT crew last night. Shaq, Kenny, Ernie, Chuck, all of them. Great, love them. But one thing that they were talking about COVID and all this, and they were talking about the new rules that were put in place for 2 weeks. And Kenny and Ernie were saying it's not that bad. Everyone can do it. But Shaq and Chuck, they were just saying like, oh, like, I need to go out and get a bite to eat. I need to be able to go to restaurants. And it's like, you're not above everyone else in society. And at the end of the day, like, going back to Kyrie now, he's putting the entire NBA in jeopardy right now. He's showing that some players, no matter how, like, I guess some people would think that like, people who don't play, like bench warmers, I guess, kind of just disrespectful, but bench warmers would be the ones that are going out and, like, because they don't play, they don't really care. But one of the biggest stars in the NBA is the one that's going out and doing whatever, not caring about his team or just the league in general, and really putting them in jeopardy, and taking it all the way to the Nets now. He's putting this team that they just assembled like 2 days ago with James Harden, KD, Kyrie Irving. He really might mess this up for them. This is like, if they don't win the championship this year, it's just going to be really bad, because this team is I don't want to compare it to like the Miami Heat or the Golden State Warriors for the last 4 years, because we haven't seen them play. But if he messes the season up by just acting out and not being responsible, that's something that he can't redeem himself for. Like, that's just crazy. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I'll just ask you right now, since we're on the topic of the Nets, what did you think about the James Harden trade? What were your first reactions, and how high do you think their ceiling is this year?
My initial reaction was, I said a bad word. I was like watching a movie with my friend, and I was like, and she's not really, she follows basketball, but she's not like super into it. So I was like freaking out and trying to explain it to her, and she was like, okay. But it was funny in a very non-funny way to me, if that makes any sense. You know how you just kind of laugh at things. You're like, okay, I'm really interested to see how they play together, because it's really interesting because they've all played with other superstars before, right? I mean, Harden and KD used to play together with Russell Westbrook, but I feel like that was before any of them really hit where they are. But then of course KD played with Steph, and that worked really well. Kyrie played with LeBron, and that worked really well. But I'm interested to see the three of them play together, particularly Kyrie and James Harden. They're very ball dominant guys. They've obviously played with other ball dominant guys, but I'm just interested to see how the three of them coexist. I think if it works, it can really work. But I also could completely just seeing it maybe not going the right direction. And I think it'll be interesting to see if it's an immediate thing or if it does take time, and how much time will it actually be. If they don't make it to the finals, is that like, okay, they should disband the three of them right away? Or is it, was one season that happened a month into a season when all this was going on with Kyrie, all that was going on with James Harden, games were being postponed, let's give it another year to really, come to fruition under a new coach, obviously. So it'll be interesting. I didn't like the way James Harden went about it, but the trade itself, I think, will be an interesting thing to watch. Hopefully it's entertaining and fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're gonna see some games where they score like 150, and then there's gonna be other games where the offense isn't moving the ball enough and stuff that's so great. But I think they definitely need to give themselves time. If you think about, we were just talking about with the Warriors, we needed time to kind of find a little bit of a stride. We're still working stuff out. So when you put those three guys together, I think you're definitely going to need some time. But also going back to what you mentioned with what Mike Wilbon said, I think that one of the biggest problems with the Clippers last year was they didn't have a definitive leader on their team, because obviously Kawhi Leonard is a top 5 player in the world, top 3, whatever. He's a great player, but he's not a vocal leader. And so I think that was part of the problem they ran into. And one of my worries with the Nets is that all that talent, like they easily have the talent to be the best offensive team of all time with those guys, Joe Harris, and then the other role players they still do have. They can score as many points as anybody, but Kevin Durant, as great as he is, and as a Warriors fan, I will always appreciate Kevin Durant. He's not a vocal leader. I mean, leading by example, maybe, but he's not a vocal leader. And Lord knows Kyrie and Harden aren't really leaders themselves based on their behavior. So I don't know. I think that's one of the problems they can run into.
For sure. So, I mean, yeah. So I guess this is kind of, we've asked all the questions that we wanted to ask, and we just want to thank you so much again for coming on. And we just have a couple more things to go through. So one more question, kind of a funny question.
Okay.
As a professional podcaster, do you have any advice for us on how we can improve our podcasting skills?
No, you guys are really good. I think something that's really important for podcasts, and it's so funny because I was actually literally had a phone call yesterday with my new podcast producer and the guy co-hosting the podcast with, and so we were talking about some very similar things, and like having a good rapport with your co-host is like important, and I can tell that like you guys have that, and that it's not like a question answer, actual conversation within those questions. Obviously you have to get them out, but if you're having a guest, putting your 2 cents into the matters and topics as well is really good. Making it a conversation is always good. And I think just for interviewing people in general, whether it's a podcast guest or like an interview for a story, like making it as conversational as possible is always important and good because it just makes everything flow and feel way more natural. But no, I think you guys did a really good job.
Thank you. And last thing, so you're starting a whole new job with the Golden State Warriors, and I'm sure you have a lot of projects you're working on, a lot of content that's coming out. So is there anything that you want to shout out of yours that's coming up, that you want people to know about?
Not yet, because I haven't started yet. So
right.
I start Monday, but when that comes out, I just mentioned the podcast. I'll be co-hosting the Dubs Talk podcast with Grant Liffman, who hosts Where's Out right now.
Yeah.
So, we're going through a little rebranding. So keep your eyes out for that. And then, I'll just plug NBC Sports Bay Area because that's my new home. So, all those things.
Okay. And just to clarify, are you going to be on the sidelines? Is that also where we can see you?
NBC took away their sideline reporters position.
Right. COVID.
So I'll be doing a lot of writing.
Yeah.
And I forgot about it the other day too. I asked when I get there, can I come into the studio for the Monday night game? And they're like, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And I was like,
right.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So I'll be doing a lot of writing, and then I'll be in a couple weeks probably. I'll be hopping on some of the pre and post game shows. So that'll be on the TV channel, and then the writing will be up on the website, and the podcast will be on the website and their YouTube channel. And I think it's available everywhere you get podcasts. So Spotify, Apple, I don't know SoundCloud very well, so I don't really know what's going on. The podcast places where you listen to things.
Okay, awesome. Well, Kendra Andrews, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. We really appreciate it. It's a really busy time, so thank you for giving us some of your time so we could interview and talk. So
anytime.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, I guess that's it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and if you guys ever don't hesitate to reach out or anything, I'll I can email you guys my phone number too. I'll put it in our little email chain. So if you ever, if your senior projects you need help, I can always see if I can help out with anything or just any advice or anything like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. All right, I'll talk to you.
Thank you so much.
All right.